Hello students, I have another video for you today on incorporating sources into your work. There are three main times that you might want to use a source, and then you can see them here. We're going to go through them one at a time. The first is when you make a factual claim, so you're saying that something is true and that claim is not common knowledge. So determining whether or not something is common knowledge is going to be up to you, really. If you aren't sure if something is common knowledge, if you don't really know that a lot of people know the thing that you're saying, go ahead and use a source to be on the safe side. You should, however, consider definitions to be common knowledge. So you can expect your audience to be willing to look something up, uh, even if it's a complicated thing, unless you are using a technical or specific definition of the word, so not the way that most people would understand the word. So if you're using specific jargon, you can go ahead and include a definition then. What you should remember when you're trying to determine whether or not something is common knowledge, whether or not you should include the definition of something, is to think about your audience. And this is true for everything that you write. Think about your audience. Would they understand the way that you are using the word? Would they know the statistic that you are claiming? Would they know that parking is a problem on the Towson campus? And for that last example, a lot of administrators don't actually know that it's a problem because they have reserved parking spaces. So you may have to point out specific reasons why these things are true. Use some data, in other words. And that's another time to use a source. When your position would be helped with data or other evidence that you did not come up with on your own. And the reason that you might want to do this is because essays with numbers, with percentages, with the amount of money something costs, things like that, tend to be more convincing than those where someone just claims that there is a problem and tells stories about the problem. If you include numbers, if you include the number of people affected, the number of people helped, the amount of money spent on something, the amount of time spent on something, people are generally going to be more convinced by that sort of thing, especially people who have the power to make decisions about the kinds of things you're going to be writing about. In a lot of cases, while you could conduct your own studies, do your own research, and find these numbers out yourself, it's going to be easier for you to find other sources that have the data that you need. So this is the second case when you might want to use a source. The third case is when you want to include an example that happened to someone else. And this is a situation where you have an anecdote. Let's say I was driving in the parking garage at Towson and the bottom of my car scraped against the speed bump. If I talk about what happened to me, then that's one person having a problem. If I talk about a lot of other people having the same problem, that's going to be more convincing. I do have to find a source of that, but it's going to be more convincing because it means that the problem isn't with me or with my car being too low to the ground. I'm not driving too fast. If other people have this same problem, that is a cause for concern. That's a cause for someone to fix the issue. So those are three times that you might want to use sources. And again, we talked about this early in the class when we went over plagiarism, but there is a specific way that you want to use a source and incorporate it into your work. The first thing to try to do is to paraphrase your source, which means rewrite it in your own words. And I think I'm going to link back to that plagiarism video again, just so that you remember how much care you have to take in plagiarism. And remember that paraphrasing is going to make that source easier for your audience to digest. They're reading an essay that is in your words. If you suddenly bring in someone else's words, their style of writing, the jargon that they use, the diction that they use, all of that is going to be different, and it's going to shock your audience and make them respond differently and read it differently. If you paraphrase it and explain what it means and explain how it relates to your argument, you are using your own words to do that, which is going to smooth your audience's experience of reading, which makes it a better reading experience, which makes it more convincing to them. If you are paraphrasing something, that can take as much time, as much space on the page as it needs. You don't need to feel like you have to paraphrase in exactly the amount of space that the original quotation takes up. If you are using a quotation instead of paraphrasing, you need to spend more time analyzing your source and explaining how it helps your argument. You need to do more work in your own words if you are not paraphrasing. And the point of this is to make sure that your audience understands what that quotation is saying. Finally, you should remember to use in-text citations and a works cited or references page. I posted a video earlier this week on how to use the Purdue OWL website and another video on using the library. Refer to those to find sources and to make your in-text citations and works cited page. What I'm asking for this assignment is to use your major's preferred style. And if you aren't sure or don't know, use MLA style. That's what I'm most familiar with. So those are all times that you might want to incorporate sources and how you should go about incorporating the sources. This is one of the things that a lot of people talked about struggling with at the beginning of class when I had my meetings with you. Please spend some time on this. If you know you struggle, spend time on it and come talk to me. I have a lot of experience doing this. I can demystify it for you. I can help you out, and I'm more than willing to do that. All right, let me know if you have any questions.